Good morning and good afternoon or good evening, depending on where you're tuning in throughout the world with us today. Thank you so much for joining us for this live discussion about the opportunities for businesses in Dubai and the legal, the tax, and the economic aspects of operating in the city. My name is Pascal Warnebold. I'm the head of marketing here with the private office of Sheikh Zayed bin Ahmed Al Maktoum and the Seed Group. And we have the pleasure of having a stellar group of panelists join us for today's discussion. Considering the level of discussion that we have for everyone today, that we have more time for our Q&A session, I'll introduce our distinguished panelists right away and begin our presentation. So first of all, I would like to welcome Dr. Reem Lepa, who is an advisor to the UAE government. We have with us today also Mr. Jad Taha, who is partner at Mayer Brown Middle East, which is a leading international law firm. We have Mr. Suhail Rabe from the private office, who is the Director of Compliance and Government Relations. And we have also with us today Ms. Omnia Ahmed, Director of International Venture. So our agenda for today is grouped into 4 parts. We'll first discuss why Dubai is the ideal destination for businesses, followed by strategy for doing business in Dubai. Then we talk about the legal requirements, and lastly, the tax and finance aspect for operating in Dubai. Just a note for everyone, once our panelists begin their presentation and you have follow-up questions regarding the topics being presented, please type them into the chat box on the screen. We will address as many questions as time permits during our Q&A segment. We are also recording today's event, which we will share with you next week. And of course, we encourage everyone to share it with your colleagues so they can watch it as well. We hope you have time to cover to the end of today's session. Otherwise, we'll be sure to follow up individually after the event. So without further ado, let's get started. To tell us more about why Dubai is the ideal destination for business, I would like to hand over this to Ms. Omnia Ahmed.
Thank you, Pascal. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I hope you will have a fruitful session that will later on, we will try to answer all your questions. To start with my presentation today, I would like to highlight 2 key information that all the data and the information we'll share with you today, it will be openly available as a data format on all the websites that related to D33 Dubai government or Dubai media office. The intention from my side and the rest of the speakers is to give you a well-rounded overview about the data that we will discuss today, and then help you at the end of webinar get more of key insights along with the key feedback from the rest of the experts joining us today. To start with, one of the most important things that each and every company owner or investor, they are trying to have when they are trying to expand to a new country or maybe entering a new market is 2 key factors. One of them is making sure that they have the right ecosystem for their business, whether it's around regulation, access to finance, making sure that they are in the right location and they have access to the right talent. And also, the most important factor element, I guess, for everyone is making sure they have the right environment, a sustainable environment for his family and loved ones. So beside all those factors, what I'm going to discuss today and all the points starting by the diversification here, it will help you understand why Dubai is the ideal location. The first point, as you can see in front of you, is around diversification, is making sure that Dubai is diversified, has a diversified economy, starting from tourism, real estate, trade, finance, and logistics. And here I would like to highlight a key point, which is most of the people, they would be surprised when I'm saying that Dubai has only 1% of its GDP allocated towards oil and gas. The rest, I would say around 99% of the rest of the GDP is around trade, finance, logistics, and so on, which will give you a great indication that if regardless of which industry that you are trying to penetrate or at least form your business in, you will definitely have an opportunity. The second thing, which is the infrastructure development, by default, each and every newcomer to a new country is trying to make sure that he has an ideal infrastructure for his business, whether it's around import and export, a transportation, a logistic. Dubai have been continuously thriving and improving the infrastructure of the city. And we're going to see, regardless of what kind of, I would say, new factors will come to the city, there is always new projects here and there that will help us to adapt. Moving forward, one of the key things also for each and every newcomer or business owner is trying to make sure that he has the right setup for his business. I know later on, my colleague Suhail will give you more details on this, but Dubai has many free zones. And as we can see in the future also with the D33 strategy, those free zones and trade zones, they're going to be jumping. I believe we have a decent number now, and we're going to reach up to 400 trade zones by 2030. One of the most important factors I would like to mention that recently, for example, that Dubai Maritime City with Dubai Trade, they have created what we call it more transparency around the payment gateways. So when we're talking about the free zones, we're not talking purely about the ownership, as you can see in front of you in the slide, but we're talking also about how I'm going to be a part of an ecosystem where I will be able to do business freely with 100% ownership, but also we get access to buyers. And this is what the different free zones in Dubai avail for the business owners and for their community. The strategic location, I don't think I need to mention a lot about this point. We match half of the world time zones. And beside the time zones by default, we can see that there's a lot of headquarters from different tech companies, coming from different industries, allocating their headquarters here in the UAE. Beside the access to different visa schemes, so a company can have here what we call it a remote visa, or they can initially locate a bigger amount of their employees in the UAE or in Dubai specifically. Moving forward, one of the key things, again, for any business owner or investor is making sure that they have business-friendly policies. And I guess we can still call Dubai or the UAE a tax-free heaven. It's not only around taxation or whatever, I would say, any kind of additional fees that we are experiencing when we are setting a new business or when we are generating revenues. It's also the fact that we do have different regulations and we're entertaining different regulations within the DIFC or any other free zone to make sure that if we are trying to match the UAE regulations here, we will always have an alternative which would suit your headquarter or what you know very well as a regulation in your home country. Moving forward, the tourism and events and the innovation and technology, and I guess both of them, they come hand in hand. We see in Dubai, we do have a lot of events starting from Jan until December that will not only drive a lot of people coming in to experience the city or to conduct business meetings or to actually have business opportunities, but will also help driving key initiatives by the government. And let me just focus a little bit here about the innovation and technology. What we do here in the private office, I'm sure most of you have an idea, you have done your research, we typically follow governmental initiatives. And the recent one, as mentioned here, obviously on the presentations around Dubai Future Acceleration. But what I would like to highly mention that we started by having Dubai paperless government a few years back, and then we moved into Dubai blockchain government, and recently Dubai metaverse government. That will give you enough indication about how we have a highly adoption or how the government have a high adoption when it comes to technology. And most importantly, those regulations and initiatives comes with already projects to be implemented and already market opportunities to be captured as well. We'll pause here for a while, and I just want to leave you with the key takeaways of why I have mentioned those points. And I hope I have added maybe one or two new information or maybe points in your consideration. What is really important for any business owner or investor, when he's trying to come to a new country, is making sure that he have done his market research. And by default, the market research is not only about whether there is a product market fit for his own product, but also trying to understand what kind of regulations that he need to adapt with. And the most important thing is making sure that he will have, by default, the right supply when it comes to finding the right talents, or maybe logistics, or anything around the regulations that may be related to his import and export business on the other side. I will stay with you till the end of webinar. We'll see if we do have any other questions, and I'll pause for the time being.
Thank you so much, Omnia. That was very interesting. I would like to give the word to Mr. Suhail to speak about the more government-related and licensing topics.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Suhail Rabih. I'm Director of Compliance and Government Relations in Seed Group and the Private Office of Sheikh Saeed bin Ahmed Al Maktoum. We'll take you today through the company formation and legal. I've seen lots of questions around the legal structures or the company formation from different aspects. So I hope my presentation today shall cover most of those questions. And anyways, at the end of the session, hopefully if anything is not covered, then we will cover it in the Q&A. So first, I will take you through the different legal structures in the UAE. We will focus on the most famous or known ones, and we will just neglect the ones that are very, very specific when it comes to industrial licenses or agricultural licenses. So basically, there is the limited liability companies, there are free zone companies, branch offices, representative offices, and sole establishments. The main differentiator here is the ownership of these companies. So when it comes to multiple shareholders or multiple owners, it is always best to go with a limited liability company, which somehow protects the rights or the wealth of each shareholder and limits the liability for each shareholder under the name of the company itself, without impacting in any way his wealth or his shares in any other company. Now, the free zone companies can come in two different structures, which are the limited liabilities and the private partnership model, where it comes with different partners, different shareholders, and different directors that control the entity. The branch offices obviously is always a branch of a foreign company. So when there is a foreign company, whether from Europe, US, Asia, India, or wherever it is, when they plan to establish a branch of that company, now it is possible with the new regulation that is owned 100% by the mother company. So basically, it will be the headquarters of that company in the region that covers all the activities that are usually taken over by the mother company itself. The representative office can only do very limited activities for the mother companies. It's similar to the branch office, but it limits the activities of the representative office to only marketing activities without actually undertaking work under the name of the mother company in the UAE. The sole establishment company usually comes when it's one individual owns the company itself 100%, but this structure is limited to very, very rare activities in the UAE, and usually it is limited to UAE nationals only. Now, the local partnership of 51% that used to be for the past 40 years or so in the law is no longer required as per the new regulations that is issued back in 2022. The minimum capital requirement for this limited liability company comes to 100,000 dirhams, which is approximately $25,000. It is usually suitable for mainland activities when it comes to dealing with governmental entities or any big private sector entities. They always prefer to deal with suppliers who are registered onshore as limited liability companies. Therefore, we always recommend when you are planning or aiming to deal with big entities, with big names, with governmental entities, we always recommend the limited liability company onshore, because that is where the registration as a supplier in these entities is much easier. Now, free zone companies have also its own benefits of 100% foreign ownership, and they are exempted in many of the of all import and export duties. So it is ideal usually for trading physical products, where you bring in the products in the free zone and you only bring them into the country or onshore when you actually have a customer, and that's where you pay for the income import and export duty. That for the taxation side, I believe I leave it to the tax expert, but as Omnia rightly said, it is still tax haven country, considered as tax haven country. Yes, we do have VAT tax, and currently corporate tax is being implemented as we speak. But in comparison to other countries in the region or in Europe and US, we are still far better from tax perspective. Now, we have more than 20 different free zones in Dubai itself. These free zones are mostly, each one is specific for a specific area of business. So we have Javza usually for physical products. We have Media City for media companies. We have Internet City free zone for web companies and so on. Now, setting up a company can be a bit complicated if you're doing it for the first time, but if you have an expert taking care of the process, I believe this is straightforward. Yes, the requirements can be a bit complicated when it depending on the legal structure of the company, the ownership of the company, if the owners are individuals or other entities, if the entities are registered within the UAE or in other countries as well. But usually choosing the legal structure always comes first, because that will define where the application should go and what are the required documents. Then registering the trade name of the company, which refers to the name and the activity of your company. Applying for initial approval is always also a good step added to the process, because with this step, it gives you the visibility that this activity with this ownership structure or legal structure is accepted by the local authorities before you proceed further throughout the process. Once that is completed, then we draft the MOA, which is the Memorandum of Association of the company, that defines the shareholders, the percentages of each shareholder, the capital of the company, the management of the company, and the activities that the company will undertake. Now, leasing of office space is required for onshore companies. For free zones, most of the free zones provide these options, flexible desks or registered offices within their own free zones. But for the onshore companies, you always have to go through with renting an actual office. In some cases, in many cases, you can depend on business centers who can provide very minimal sized offices with a minimal cost. Once that is done, then you obtain the trade license after paying, of course, all the fees. Once the registration of the license is completed, the trade license will be issued. And that means you can officially now trade based on the activities and based on the structure that is mentioned on the commercial license that you receive. And from that onwards, you can start working on visas and other requirements, let's say, such as certain permits for certain activities. So for restaurants, they need to get approval from food control department. Let's say for other trading activities, you may need municipality approval for the products and so on. Now I'll take you through the different types of visas in the UAE or in Dubai specifically. We have investor visas. This comes when you are an investor, you own your own business, whether in a free zone or onshore. When you own the company, that allows you to apply for an investor visa. Partner visa, obviously, when you are a partner in any company here, especially limited liabilities companies, you can apply for a partner visa. Otherwise, you have to go through an employment visa with any employer or any registered companies in the UAE. We have also two types of visas that are currently being introduced. The mission visa, which is 3 months visa, that is only for a specific task, for specific company or individual. for specific time frame of less than 3 months that allows people to come work 3 months and go without the hassle of having to apply for full 2 years employment visa for them. And the golden visa, last but not least, and which is the most famous one nowadays in the past year or so, which is the golden visa. There are different categories. We will go through the categories of the golden visa as well in the coming slides. Now, a very important part here to mention here is anybody who would like to stay in the UAE long term must have a residency visa. So you cannot, as a visitor, depend on the visit on arrival that you get or the visit that you apply for, because it is illegal to work with a visit on arrival. It is illegal to work with a tourist visa or a visit visa that you get through a friend or a relative and so on. So it's always recommended as soon as you land in Dubai to start the residency visa application under each or either one of these categories. Of course, each one has its own requirements and needs, but they all cover the aspect that you are officially a resident in the UAE and you are officially allowed to conduct business or to work in the UAE. Now, categories of golden visa are investors. Basically, if you own a business that have a turnover with more than $2 million, entrepreneurs, there are specific details also about them getting the golden visa. Special talents and researchers, this is when you are an inventor or you have any kind of patents, inventions in any category of life, whether it's science, whether if you are a doctor. Outstanding students and graduates in the UAE can also apply for a golden visa. And frontline workers is basically a privilege that was given to the health sector employees, from doctors to nurses, during the COVID pandemic, to support their efforts towards the help that they give throughout their services during those days. Now, each category, of course, obviously, of the golden visa requires certain requirements or certain documentation to support the applicant. We can, from our side, also advise or support if anybody who would like to apply for one, or at least inquire about the more details about the requirements. Now, I think the last point that we will mention in the presentation is that Dubai is well known with its regulatory updates and initiatives. So there are always new initiatives from the government. I believe I've seen lots of countries when government services is a headache. Now, the UAE has taken a very good step forward when it comes to governmental services, where they privatize all or most of the government services throughout private business centers or private service providers, where you can go and do all the governmental processes under different roofs instead of one specific roof, where you get crowd and you get hassle and you get parking issues and you get issues dealing with the governmental officials. So the whole government is now becoming online. Everything is applied online, and to guarantee the transparency of those online applications, they introduced those private centers where you can apply through them online for most, I believe more than 90% of the governmental activities in Dubai. Now, paperless initiative, within a couple of years now, the whole government of the UAE will become paperless. So we are at the last days of using papers. Last time I applied for my daughter's visa, it was all done online. Even the visa, when I asked them where is the printout, they say it's on your email. So you can always just receive it on your email and present it all even on your phone screen when you're coming to an immigration or you're going anywhere. Everything is online. Everything is accepted online. It is very, very rare nowadays for any governmental office to ask for physical papers. Now, bureaucracy reduction, this is the latest initiative for 2024 from the Prime Minister office, is to reduce the bureaucracy by 50% towards the end of the year of 2024. I've seen lots of ministries and federal government offices are like heavily working on this, which is something that also connects all the dots. So basically, most of the ministries now collaborating with each other, where they can extract information and documents, uploaded documents from each other's system. So instead of you uploading the same document again and again and again, so you all have to apply once, and once you register your login details with other ministry or other authority, automatically all your information are pasted there, all your documentation are there to help you also throughout any governmental process that you're applying for. That's it from my side. I will be open for the questions towards the end of the session. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Suhail. Now, let's circle back to our second topic, the D33 agenda and the strategies for doing business in Dubai. And I would like to give the word into Dr. Reem.
Thank you, dear. Would you be able to share the screen, please? As I was trying to say initially, so the Dubai government is very, very active in terms of new policies, in terms of how we can make Dubai a better place for everybody. So the D33 agenda includes like 4 main objectives. So one is the economical growth. So the idea is to reach above 30 trillion AED per 2023. In terms of foreign trade, the idea is really to double the value of the current foreign trade of the UAE with different countries, different partners out there. We are talking also about the foreign direct investment. So the idea is really to raise the FDI to an average 32 billion annually to 60 billion annually. That's the idea. Government expenditure. So we would like also to increase because we need to support the investment. We need to support also the growth of our own government. So there is an increase in terms of government. Private sector investment. The government is going to inject 1 trillion AED in the private sector to really boost the public-private partnership, to really boost the employment of Emiratis in the private sector. But also there is a massive reliance on the private sector here in the UAE. The government is not doing everything on their own. They really understand that we need the private sector to make it happen. So there is an injection in terms of money directly to the private sector. Domestic demand will, of course, boom. This is somehow a result of this virtuous circle. So the idea is to boost, for example, the services to 3 trillion AED by 2033. And the digital transformation, which is like a massive topic at the moment. Everybody is talking about AI transformation, generative AI. The AI use cases are currently collected from all the government entities at the moment. And really the digital transformation is key in our expenditure and on our economical growth. So those are the 7 objectives. And as our colleague mentioned previously, the bureaucracy, the paper, and all of that, really our goal is to be able to manage our life through our mobile phones. So if we look at the current key initiative that the government is pushing for, I just put 10 of them, but to be honest, there is plenty of them. I just put the one that I believe are the most important ones. So the first one is the foreign trade expansion. So today, the government of the UAE and Dubai in particular is really having like key major partners outside. So I'm thinking of France, the UK, the US, China as well. But the idea is really to include and increase by 400 cities the Dubai foreign trade map. What does that mean is we are going to continue to sign MOUs with the different government. We are going to increase the number of point-to-point destination in terms of cargo, but also airlines. The idea is really to have a better business with 400 additional partners. Green manufacturing is a hot topic as well. So the idea is how we make our economy very sustainable. Not that it's sustainable in a financial term, but also on a green term, how we ensure as well our food security moving forward in the UAE, how we ensure that we are saving water, that we are using the resources in a very sustainable way. This is a new way of doing business as well, but it's very key for our future development. Third one is the future economic corridor. So one of the one I'm currently focusing myself into is the Silk Road, right? Is how we basically improve and increase the business in the Silk Road. So from the UAE to China. But there is other economic corridors that we are looking into. It's like Africa, Latin America, Southeast Asia. So how we can improve, look at those regions, and how we can increase the business with those regions. Support of new companies in the UAE is also key. My colleague before mentioned that there is a lot of licenses that you can do directly online, very easy to do, very easy to get your visa. So the idea is also to scale a program for potential unicorn that will be born here in the UAE, but the government really wants to find out those 30 companies. I can tell you we did not find them all yet. So we are trying to support the startup ecosystem here in the UAE to try to push those startups to become legal global unicorn. The fifth one is the employment of Emiratis. So today we have an initiative called NAFIS to push Emirati nationals working in the private sector. The idea is really to push them even further and to subsidize the employers as well as the job seekers to increase the number of young Emirati in the job market, specifically in the private sector. It's really key and important in a sense that sometimes when you do business, it's really important to understand the culture of the country. And having a UAE national with you, part of your team, can be key on the success and the relationship you are going to build either with the government or either with the private sector here. Dubai Trader Project is also the new generation of trader, has a key sector. We have unified business licenses. So the idea is to really implement a unified commercial identity for companies across some economical zone. I'm thinking about Jebel Ali. I'm thinking about other economical zones that have a very specific legal framework underneath. And to discuss that a little bit further, I will basically push you to have a conversation with my colleague from the legal team. The eighth one is the Sandbox Dubai. So as I mentioned, we are into innovation a lot at the moment, especially digital transformation. So we are creating two things. One is the Sandbox for Dubai. This is for really private sector, government sector, startup, to be able to use technology like Microsoft and others, to be able to use them for free, to demonstrate POCs, MVPs, and then work directly with your potential customer. And in Abu Dhabi, we are planning to create another sandbox, but more related to AI specifically. And the idea is to bring the government, private sector, startup world together and to develop AI use case for the different government entity here in Abu Dhabi, and to be able to use this technology and the enablers from the government. It will be one-stop shop, if I can say so. One-stop shop, but really to improve commercialization of new technology, but also testing and have a clear idea of what is your product for those entities. So at least they can see your product, they can touch your product, they can test it. So the idea is to create those common platform to bring everybody together. We have also the educational hub. Educational hub is how we attract more universities to Dubai. So we have very fancy global names here based in UAE, like INSEAD, like La Sorbonne, like New York University, and others more based in Dubai. But the idea is to increase the number of those universities to create that virtuous circle. And the last one is really the SME support. The idea is to have maybe support 400 additional SMEs for global expansion from the UAE. So talking about those 10 initiatives is just a way for me to illustrate how the government is active, not only from a government side, but also how they can push further the private sector and the private partnership. So really the idea is to bring everybody together and create good for Dubai. That's the idea. So overall, the idea is really to enhance Dubai position on a top logistic and financial hub, promote sustainable economic growth and self-sufficiency, so really sustainable from a green perspective, but also financial perspective, increase productivity through innovation and digital, and make Dubai one of the top 3 international destination in terms of tourism and business. I added few link. I hope the team will be able to share that with you. Really, you will find all the information relative to the Dubai 33 online. It's very easy to access. And if you have further question on this specific program pushed by Dubai government, you can always reach out to our team. There is a similar program also pushed by Abu Dhabi, because each emirate have independent economic agenda, and we have also a federal one. So you can also find very easily online those programs. I will just now tap into the topic of how you should do business, or how I can help you to do business, and what would be a good strategy to do business in the UAE. So I have also like 11 advice, if I can say. So the first one, because I saw that most of you are not in the UAE, is understand our market, right? So you need to do your research, but you need also to use the people that are here in the UAE, like our team, the advisors, like try to understand the dynamic of our market, because sometimes it can be surprisingly different than what you have in mind. So use the people that are today in the UAE to understand who is your potential customer, what are they doing. There is no need and no point on going presenting a technology that they have for the last 5 years, which is like the best in class technology, right? So go understand the current market, understand the competition, who is available, who's not available, how they are doing business in the UAE, and use the local people that you might know, or your friends, or advisors here. The second is choose the right business structures. Of course, my colleague previously already touched base into that, as well as the third point, which is the legal and regulatory compliance. I just would like to emphasize again, please stay on top of those topics, because the UAE is very innovative. And really, we are a very agile government. So we take decisions overnight, and we change the visa structure also overnight. So things can change pretty quickly here. So you need to keep this topic really in your radar when it comes to the business licensing, visa, work permit. Keep basically yourself up to date. Cultural sensitivity is a very interesting topic in my view. So 2 things. There is of course, the business etiquette, how we deal with government, non-government, private sector here. We still have an Arabic way to deal sometimes with business. We like to meet people in person rather than on Teams. We like basically to understand who you are before doing business with you. Right. So in terms of language, of course, English is widely spoken in the UAE. People speak good English, but at the same time, if you can learn few key phrases in Arabic, it always helps breaking the ice with your potential customer and creating that relationship with people, right? So here it's crucial really that the trust is built from the beginning, and for that you need some human interaction. Always help. It's always better than Teams. If we go to the next one, networking and relationship. So this is also key to understand who is your customer, right? So you have, of course, you need to build your own relationship. You can use the local partner, but at the same time, you need to speak to key decision maker. This is one thing, but not only. It's always great to also catch up with the managers that are part of a company. Let's say if you are discussing, let's say, a technology program or a technology product, to understand what is their landscape, right? So if you are focused, I'm taking as well a random example, a cybersecurity product, it's great to catch up, have a coffee, have a dinner with some of the managers that are working there to really understand the landscape, what they are doing so far. Is there an RFP coming out? What is the landscape exactly? What are the constraints? What are the issues the business is trying to resolve at the moment? It's always beneficial in a way that when you have a discussion with the key decision makers, you are spot on, right? And you are not missing and talking about things that are not really interested to. So the objective is really to be spot on from the beginning, because people will not give you two opportunities really to come to the table and to have a conversation with them. It's really unlikely because people are very busy and the environment here is moving very, very fast. So the idea really is try to be spot on from day one. Financial planning, I'll leave that to my colleague. Of course, when you start some business, you need to have some cash flow. I think it's way easier to do business in the UAE than KSA, which require a 9-month cash flow. It's easier, to be honest, here. Marketing and branding, of course, local presence help. We are very digital, so when we hear about a new company, the first thing that we do is go on Google and check who are those guys, what they've been working on, what are their projects. So it's very important that you have a clean online presence, available on LinkedIn, available on Google, that you have a website that explains also clearly what is your product, who you are, where are you based, with who you are working. Really important because this is the first thing that we do usually. Logistic and infrastructure. Dubai is very advanced in terms of logistic and transportation infrastructure. Our infrastructure are very new. They are basically top class. Supply chain and technology are really the latest state of art that you can find around the world. So that's very easy as well to adapt, to have access to cloud and all of that. Number 10, adapt to change. Of course, stay updated. I have to emphasize into that. So stay updated. Stay updated on the people as well, because here in the UAE, it's different that, for example, in Europe, people stay a very short period of time in a company. They move very, very, very fast. They move around very quickly. So it's really important that you keep yourself updated on who's there, who left, to keep basically touch with your customer. Number 10, use government resources, including the events. So I can mention GITEX, UMEX, Arab Health. Those are key events in the UAE. It's really important that you try to attend to those, to create your relationship and to create that connection with the customer, understand where they stand in terms of products, so you are more spot on when you go to them. Be flexible, patience is key, and also don't miss Abu Dhabi and Al Ain, which provide massive opportunity here as well in the UAE. So the capital city is actually Abu Dhabi, and Abu Dhabi is doing also massive investment. There is less expat population in Abu Dhabi. It's more UAE population driven. But the investment are not short as well. So have a look at Abu Dhabi at Al Ain on what they can basically propose to you. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Reem, for those great insights. And now, as a last part, I would like to give the word to Mr. Chad Taha, who will run us through the tax and finance aspects of operating in Dubai.
Thank you very much, Pascal, and thanks everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you all today. Just by way of a brief introduction, my name is Jad Taha. I head up the corporate and securities practice for the Middle East at the law firm of Mayer Brown. We are a U.S. International law firm, 27 offices around the world, and of course, with one of our main offices being in Dubai, which serves as a hub office for our Middle East practice and a one-stop shop for legal services across the board, including, of course, in terms of doing business in the UAE. And it's my pleasure today to speak about the tax regime and tax framework in the UAE in particular. I'll go ahead and share my slide deck. The first page, the cover page on tax and finance aspects of operating in Dubai. Moving on to just a brief agenda. We're going to cover today, and I'm recognizing we're coming up on time, so I'll be fairly swift with some of the slides, but overall, just an overview on corporate taxation in the UAE and the role of the Federal Tax Authority and its recent enforcement actions. Free zone persons, there are a lot of questions we get on the treatment, the new tax regime treatment with respect to free zone companies, And finally, some points on the financial aspects of doing business in the UAE. Starting with just an overview. So what is corporate tax? It's a form of direct tax that's levied on the net income of corporations, other entities. We mentioned at the top of this hour different types of entities. One of them is corporations. There are LLCs and other entities as well. This is a direct tax that's levied across the board on corporate entities. And it's based on a federal decree law from 2023 that amended certain provisions of the previous iteration of it in 22 on the taxation of corporations and businesses. Businesses are now subject to tax as of the beginning of their first financial year that started on or after mid-2023. And the objectives of this framework is to foster the UAE's position as a leader for businesses and investment, and accelerating the development and transformation of the country to achieve its strategic objectives, including D33 in Dubai, and reaffirm the commitment to meeting international best practices when it comes to tax levy and the treatment of taxation and tax planning. So which entities which taxable persons, or what are considered taxable persons under the UAE tax framework, the new corporate income tax? It's all businesses and individuals conducting business activities under a commercial license in the UAE, pretty much. There are some exceptions, and we'll get to those in the next few slides. Free zone businesses on a non-qualifying income basis are also subject to corporate income tax. We'll also get to what that means in the next few slides. The existing regulatory regime in the UAE, we talked previously, my colleagues covered the concept of free zones and the existence of free zones across the UAE, the prevalence of them, and the fact that they're increasing, and really they're increasing across the country over the next few years. There has been, for a number of them, for most of them, there's a tax holiday that companies are afforded that are registered in those free zones. The UAE corporate tax regime will continue to honor those tax incentives currently that are being offered to free zone businesses, as long as they're qualifying businesses. They do operate within the confines of those free zones, and they're generating, at least with respect to qualifying income, that's still going to be exempt from the mainland's corporate income tax regime. It's also applicable to foreign entities, individuals, but only if they conduct trade or business in the UAE on a regular basis. It's applicable to banks, and it's applicable to businesses in real estate management, construction, development, agency, and brokerage businesses as well. There are some exemptions, just like any other tax regime in the world. Businesses engaged in the extraction of natural resources are exempt with certain conditions, and they're subject to some emirate level concessions. There's an exemption applicable to businesses that offer public benefits, and public benefits as recognized by the Federal Tax Authority. Qualifying investment funds that are subject to certain conditions by the FTA are also qualified for exemptions. Dividends and capital gains earned by UAE businesses from qualifying shareholders, also subject to exemptions. There are some qualifying intra-group, within company group type transactions and reorganizations that are subject to those exemptions as well. We still very much recognize in the UAE that there is no personal income tax. So any individual salaries or other employment income, whether it's received from the public or private sector type work, those still are not subject to tax. This is a corporate income tax. It's of course levied at the corporate level. Interest and other income earned by individuals from bank deposits, similarly not subject to any tax. Also, foreign investment income earned from dividends and capital gains and similar also fall within the exemption. And there are other categories as well. And of course, government entities and government-controlled entities are still exempt from taxation as well at the level of the corporate income tax. Continuing on, similarly, there's any UAE entities, UAE subsidiaries of government entities and quasi-government entities that are established in the UAE are exempt from corporate income tax. Businesses registered in free zones, and we'll get to what that really means in the next few slides again, but it's free zone persons that are conducting activities within the confines of their free zone will still benefit from the tax holiday that's afforded in that particular free zone, and they would still not be subject to corporate income tax as long as they are earning or generating qualifying income. So income that's not subject to mainland taxation. The corporate income tax rate is not applicable, so it's at 0% for any taxable income that's up to $375,000, which is just over 375,000 dirhams, excuse me, which is just over 100,000 US dollars. And then we have the fixed 9% corporate income tax that's applicable to businesses making taxable income above 375,000 dirhams. There are some deductions, including business expenditures, qualifying business expenditures. Non-deductible expenses include illegal payments, of course, bribes, fines, etc., but also donations to an entity that's not a qualifying public benefit entity, dividends and other profit distributions and expenditures. And there's a partial deduction of 50% of the amount of entertainment expenditure as well, and 30% of the amount of net interest expenditure. In terms of tax returns, filing of tax returns and payment of a corporate tax must be made for each period within 9 months from the end of the relevant financial period. Then there's a record keeping period requirement for 7 years from the end of a tax period to which that particular tax return relates. Each tax period is 12 months. From the date of which the taxable person prepares their financial statements, and each period can be changed based on an application that's submitted by that taxable person to the federal tax authority. Withholding tax rates is currently withholding in general. Withholding tax typically applies to cross-border payments of dividends, interest, royalties, and other types of income. It's currently set at 0%. And just like many tax regimes around the world, foreign tax credits would apply with respect to UAE taxes. And there is a general recognition as well under the regime for tax grouping. So this is grouping of several companies within the same group of consolidating their financial statements and consolidating their tax returns, essentially. That would also be recognized, but it cannot be that the tax group would include an exempt person or qualifying free zone person. Pretty much anyone within the group or any taxable person within the group would need to be a taxable person. There could not be qualifying free zone persons or other exempt persons within that group. Moving on to the role of the Federal Tax Authority. So the Federal Tax Authority issued its decision number 3 of 24 with regards to the timeline for registration of taxable persons under the new regime. The timeline has now been prescribed in this decision that took effect on March 1 of 2024. On the next few slides, we will get to the timelines that the FTA has specified on the basis of the issuance of the license, of the commercial license of that particular taxable person. So just as an example, if there's a taxable person or business that has a license that was issued anywhere between March the 1st to April the 30th, in any year, as long as that falls before March 1, 2024, then the prescribed deadline for tax registration would be June 30th of this year, June 30th of 2024. And this range, pretty much these ranges have been prescribed by the Federal Tax Authority, and each range, as you can see, links back to a particular prescribed deadline by the Federal Tax Authority, as long as that commercial license was issued before March 1 of 2024. If we have juridical persons or taxable persons companies that have their licenses issued after March 1, 2024, then we're looking at prescribed deadlines 3 months after the date of incorporation, if that taxable person is within the UAE, and 3 months from the end of their financial year, if that taxable person is outside the UAE. I will move on to the next few slides with respect to free zone persons and just covering exemptions and exceptions with respect to free zone persons. And of course, as we mentioned at the top of these slides, as long as you are a free zone person and you meet the qualifications of being recognized as a free zone person within or under this framework, you would not be subject to the corporate tax law and the corporate income tax, the new corporate income tax. And there was a guide that was issued by the Federal Tax Authority to help us all determine what constitutes a qualifying free zone person and what constitutes qualifying activities and excluded activities for purposes of the of taxation or non-taxation rather for a qualified free zone person. So there are a few conditions to look out for when we are looking at what persons or companies within free zones are recognized as qualifying free zone persons, and they're based on a series of components or requirements. The top of them is having a physical presence within the designated free zone. So this is having a legal entity that's registered within that free zone with the free zone authority and having adequate office space and employees operating within that free zone. They would also need to conduct business activities that are listed and recognized by the FTA as qualifying activities and also recognized as such by the free zone authority itself. And these involve anywhere from international trade, logistics, manufacturing, or innovation. But the list is longer and could involve other types of activities as well. They also need to demonstrate substance, and that's sufficient economic substance within the free zone. That involves having employees with skills and expertise to perform those activities. So these are not just folks on payroll. These are employees within an operational business carrying out the skills and the expertise that are relevant to the activities listed on the commercial license of that particular entity. There should also be some substance in operational expenditure within the free zone and demonstrating a nexus between those activities and the income that's generated within the free zone. There should also not be any tax residency in any other jurisdiction. So one of them is this election. If an entity operating within a free zone meets the physical presence, the activities, the substance requirements, but otherwise somehow elected or demonstrated itself or held itself out as being a taxable person under the UAE mainland corporate tax regime, then the other boxes that it already checked with the physical presence, the activities, the substance, etc., would be rendered moot because it would essentially now, just by making this election or holding itself out as a taxable person within mainland or anywhere outside of the free zone, then in the UAE, then it would lose that benefit of a tax holiday within the free zone and now be subject to the 9% corporate income tax of any profits generated above 375,000 dirhams. Free zones generally, and we touched on this, and my colleagues had touched on this in their presentations. Free zones are very important in the UAE. They're very much part of the fabric of the UAE business ecosystem. They're key drivers for economic growth. They've presented and demonstrated over the years substantial benefits, including relaxed ownership rules. Back in the day when most businesses and activities in the UAE needed to have a local partner, free zones would afford 100% foreign ownership for shareholders setting up in free zones. Of course, tax holidays being one of them, simplified processes, a one-stop shop for registration and maintenance and continuation of business. You have essentially one regulator in the free zone authority. That can also be your landlord in most cases, by the way. And you have your 0% corporate tax rate. But as we've mentioned previously, you would need to demonstrate yourself as a company that you are a qualified free zone entity, and you have qualified, you run and operate qualifying activities to meet the requirement, to meet the exemption of not being subject to the mainland's corporate income tax. The next few slides will delve into a bit more detail on each of these requirements. I'll spend a couple of minutes on them and just to give you a flavor of things a bit more. Being established in a free zone entity means being a true free zone entity. You must have registration and active license with the free zone authority. This includes branches of foreign entities in that free zone, and you would need to hold yourself out as a free zone entity. And demonstrating substantial activity in the free zone is the second on this list. As we've mentioned, core income generating activities must take place within the free zone. You would need to have adequate employees, assets, and operational expenses. Of course, those employees would not need just to be on payroll, but they would need to have the relevant skills to carry out the activities of the business. And you would need to have core activities that are, some outsourcing core activities are allowed, but they should be with proper supervision within the free zone. So you have your core business within the free zone with some outsourcing activities that are managed by that core business in the free zone. Qualifying income is income from approved sources like transactions with other free zone companies, approved businesses within the free zone, owning qualifying intellectual property, which itself is a defined term within the regime. Other limited income sources as well, and other categories would qualify as that qualifying income, which is the defined term within the regime. And you should, of course, avoid electing or holding yourself out as subject to the UAE corporate tax regime. Compliance with transfer pricing rules is a must as well, and maintaining audited financial statements. If in the event that you are audited, you should have, which is a requirement for all companies, audited financial statements in case of any inspection or in case of any tax audit. And you would need to limit your non-qualifying income. So if you're a business operating within a free zone that has maybe 5% qualifying income within those sitting under those or meeting those requirements, and 95% of your business is essentially non-qualifying, then you'd have a very hard time seeking an exemption from the corporate income tax rate that's applicable to mainland entities. I'll mention briefly permanent establishments, which is essentially a permanent establishment is a fixed place of business through which the business conducts all or part of its activities. And the new tax regime also recognizes foreign businesses that do operate or have some business in the UAE that triggers this permanent establishment qualification. And if you have a permanent establishment outside of the free zone, any free zone that has a tax holiday, then you are subject to corporate income tax, and there are certain economic substance requirements or rules and permanent establishment rules that fold into this analysis. And then finally, I'll just mention, I know there are a lot of foreign businesses listening and interested in the UAE ecosystem in general. I'll just supplement what my colleagues have already covered, which is there are multiple sources of finance in this country. Between equity and debt, you can be looking at commercial banks across the board. You can take your pick. There are a number of them. Very well-established banks, government and quasi-government owned included. Private equity firms as well are becoming more prevalent in this in the UAE. Venture capital firms for smaller startups and other smaller businesses. Government and quasi-government funds and other initiatives as well are very prevalent and very popular types of sources of funding. Family offices, very much active and vibrant in the investment community in the UAE and across the world nowadays, by the way. But family offices are a very important source of financing and source of investment. Individual investors as well, and incubators. There are a number of them. My colleagues covered a few of them, but these are government and private sector funded and developed type incubators and other initiatives that are designed to encourage investment in new and innovative ideas in the UAE. That's what this country is really looking for and is behind. And there are multiple sources of incubators and other types of initiatives sitting along these other sources of financing, and very much encouraging foreign investment in the UAE. And on this note, I will conclude and thank you again for your time and welcome your questions during the Q&A session. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chad. So I would like to thank everyone, our panelists, Dr. Reem, Suhail, Chad, Omnia, for sharing their expertise and their knowledge with us. And that brings us actually to the last part to this webinar, the Q&A session. We have received over 200 questions from the registrants, and unfortunately, due to the time, we won't have to, or we don't have enough time to cover all of them. But our panelists have picked some of the question, and some we already also got doing the webinar. One question. Let's start with Chad, since we just spoke about the finance and the tax. One question we got was, what would be the main driver for an overseas investor or business person to migrate and invest in the UAE? Chad, if you maybe want to take this question.
Absolutely, and it's a great one. There are multiple drivers, both legal and commercial. I would say that legal, we covered a number of them. You can really have your pick at where you would like to set up your entity. It could be in a free zone, could be outside the free zone. In free zones, there are multiple options depending on your particular sector. And so, and very much consider the tax incentives and other legal and commercial incentives of setting up in those free zones, and mainland as well. It's quite easy nowadays to set up in mainland. But also parallel to that is just the general proximity of the UAE with the rest of the world. If you're looking at the UAE as a hub for your business in the region and globally, you're looking at a country situated within pretty much 8 hours from the majority of countries around the world. Emirates Airlines, Etihad, we have a number of other airlines in the UAE that make the UAE very accessible to the rest of the world, including major markets around the world. The ease of import and export, if you're in manufacturing and distribution, is more than ever before. And so there are multiple legal and commercial reasons of setting up. It does depend. The assessment, of course, is tailored to your particular business and needs. But generally, the ecosystem has become, over the years, really 25, 30 years ago started, and very much has headed in the direction of becoming very easy and very encouraging for foreign businesses to set up and operate here.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for those insights. I see we got more questions. Many questions are regarding investment. Can you maybe provide some information on funding and raising capital to launch operation in the MENA region?
Absolutely. So we mentioned towards the end of the presentation a number of sources of funding, from commercial banks to private equity firms, venture capital firms, family offices, government and quasi-government sources of funding, and government and quasi-government incubators and initiatives as well. So there are multiple sources of funding to consider between debt and equity. The legal regime has also been very favorable to set up these types of investment structures. If you look at the DIFC, which is the Financial Free Trade Zone of Dubai, and the ADGM, or Abu Dhabi Global Market, which is the Financial Free Trade Zone of Abu Dhabi, they've been very much set up based on international best practices for SPVs that are and funds that are looking to be the vehicles for investment and financing for businesses based in the UAE and businesses looking to base their hub in the UAE for the rest of the world. Now, if you look at the DIFC and ADGM, you have concepts like preferred shares and different classes of shares, and put options and call options, and tag along and drag along rights, and other concepts that are prevalent in major markets in like the US and the UK and Australia and other places. Now you find those structures in the UAE. You would not need to go elsewhere to set up your hub, including your SPV and your investment vehicle outside the UAE. And the DIFC and ADGM have been leading efforts in that regard. So very much a favorable environment for these types of structures.
Right. Thank you so much, Chad, for those insights. We also got some questions for our legal team. One question we got during the webinar is, are there any material differences between the free trade zones, or is it solely location or professional ecosystem? Mr. Suhail, do you want to take that?
Yes, thank you, Pascal. I believe this question was answered during presentation of Jad as well. So basically, there are differentiators when it comes to taxation perspective, and when it comes to specialized free zones, as I mentioned also in my presentation. So there are specialized free zones where you can practice your own special activity, like Internet City, TCOM, Jafza, Jebel Ali Free Zone for products, or other free zones for specific services when it comes to media, internet, or online services. Now, it's also worth to mention that there was an entity created recently. It's not very recent, it's the past year or so, which is VARA. And that's also another question that we received prior to the webinar, which is a regulatory framework to regulate virtual assets and digital assets. So this is also a very interesting topic around the world, not only in Dubai. And Dubai has been one of the very early adopters and regulators for this worldwide. And now there have been a very big number of licenses that have been issued through VARA authority. And we're looking also at very many new applications as well.
Many thanks, Suhail. One more question. I think many of the attendees would be interested in hearing what are the costs to start a subsidiary business in the UAE?
So starting subsidiary business relies on two major factors, whether it's a subsidiary or or a new JV or LLC company. Basically, it's about where is the company registered. If it's onshore, then the standard cost will be $20,000-25,000. So it's around, we're looking at around $8,000 or so, more or less, dependent on the activities, because certain activities cost a bit more, but mainly it depends on the size of the office and the cost of the office the business is renting. In the free zones, it varies from free zones where it costs around $3,000-$4,000 for a license per year to up to $50,000-$60,000 with all costs covered in the likes of DIFC that are very specialized for financial services.
Great, thank you so much. I think we covered many questions, and again, if there are more questions, we see them in the chat, we will answer them individually to all of you. So I would like, on behalf of the private office and Seed Group, thank you everyone for joining us today. As you might know, we at Seed Group, we are always on the lookout for highly innovative companies that would like to grow, that would like to expand to the Middle East. If that applies to you, we are more than happy to hear from you. For that, please visit our website and submit your application. And yeah, we will go on a call and identify whether we have potential synergies for growing here in the region. That brings us to the end. Thank you so much again, and we are looking forward to hearing from you. And thank you again to all our panelists.